want to thank everybody for coming to the show today, the Ask James Show. Thank you. Like and subscribe, and there'll be links in the description. So we're just going to get on with this. And so here's the new lighting. This is with some added soft boxes, and I put the hat on because my hair is just kind of all over the place today. I can't figure out what to do with my hair, man. It's in that zone where now it's long again, but it's not. I don't know. I can't figure out what to do. So maybe the next session I'll be shaved. I'll have a shaved head. All right. Anyway, today is episode 2. Who's excited? That's when you got kids. That's what you say. Who's excited? And everybody's like, we are. This is in the box versus console versus hybrid for mixing. So I'm just going to kind of go through a little bit of my history with this. And I'm going to preface everything that I'm about to say with that I'm a student of mixing. Yeah, I enjoy it, and I get better. Every mix gets better. So. I started on Pro Tools 7. Well, I started on Pro Tools 6, but Pro Tools 7 was my first HD rig, and I mixed a little bit, and I wasn't very good, and I got discouraged, and I ended up hiring a guy to kind of mix for me because I thought, I can't do this. It's just not for me, and we were moving along nicely, and the mixes I thought sounded really nice. And then I got into Randy Staub. I remember a Nickelback and Alice in Chains. A couple of records came out that he mixed. And when I put them in the studio and listened to them, they were just so massive. And our mixes sounded good, but they just didn't sound wide. They just didn't have that thing that those mixes had. So that started a 7 or 8 year journey of craziness. And for anybody out there that knows me, knows I'm crazy, and I've owned a lot of equipment. And so everything I'm telling you is from the heart and from experience, and I don't work for anybody, so I don't have a dog in the show or a pony or a horse in the race. So you're getting this is honest. So we were doing the Pro Tools 7 thing, and mixing with a lot of Waves plugins, and I think we had just gotten Slate Trigger, and there were some of that stuff was starting to happen, and trying to find better plugins, and we were getting involved with the T-Racks and this and that and all these companies, and some of it was really good, but none of it was really quite doing the thing that we were hearing, and so I started the hybrid journey, and I got a Nicerizer, which is Phoenix Audio, and it's 16 in, 2 out, and you could hear it. It was good. It had a cool sound. I had some issues with my actual unit, so we ended up moving away from that, and we went to the Chandler mini rack mixer, which I think was 16 by 2 also. This was very much a different experience than the Nicerizer. This thing is a tank. It's big. It sounds great. It's built it's built, man. It's military grade. It feels like you're inside of a Humvee. And I was in the Army, so I'm talking from experience. It's very kind of, and it sounds great, and it looks cool, and it, Wade is just a great guy, and it's a great company to buy equipment from because they're good people. And so we had the mini rack mixer, and things started to get better. We were still on Pro Tools 7, and it was better, but it was still, I don't know, I wasn't quite getting this thing that I was hearing in my head. And I don't know if it was the techniques of the guy that was mixing for me. I was just starting to get serious about mixing, so my skill was at a certain level. He was more skilled than me, but he came from a different background. He wasn't a real full-on over-the-top rocker dude. So I think sometimes it was just a lost in the translation. But I get a call from some dude in LA named Ryan Williams. And he's a mixer, and he's mixed all kinds of big records and 30 Seconds to Mars and Stone Temple Pilots kind of stuff. And he wants to come check out my amps. I think he was interested. I had a Reeves amp or some Marshall or some Bogner. He's like, hey man, I want. So he comes over. We hit it off. We become friendly. I don't even know who he is. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I worked this, and I looked at his studio. I'm like, oh my god, he had like a 56 channel SSL, and I started like assisting for him passively. Like every week or so, I'd go in for a day, and I really was enjoying the console. And then he says, well, listen, bring your best song in and let's throw it up and mix it. I said, okay. So at the time we were working on a song called Cage. It was one of my own tunes, kind of a, heavy rock, kind of metal-y, not metal, just heavy, big stereo guitars. And we had the mix on a 2-track, through its own output. And we stemmed out or split out the entire mix onto the board. And he spent about 5 minutes and just kind of turned this up, turn that down, a little massaging, like not even 5 minutes. And we A-beat it, and it sounded better than my mix. And I was like, whoa. I didn't want to tell him we spent 3 days on this. But I was like, wow. So he let me get on it, and it sounded great. Like, I was like, okay, like, I could do this too. Like Ryan, first of all, he's a genius mixer. And then the SSL, you put it together, and you had that. But I got hot for it, and I said, all right, I'm going to get an SSL. We moved into a new spot. I had a big spot in North Hollywood. And I bought a big SSL, man, a 6048 EG Plus, and it took us 17 days to commission it. Oh my God! If I would have known what I was getting into before I started it, I probably. And I'm like a fearless cowboy. And people that know me know I go where no man wants to go. But I think that if they would have told me, like, okay, so you're gonna buy this thing, half of it's not gonna work, it's gonna cost you like $10,000 to commission it and fix it, and it's gonna take 3 weeks, I would have been like, hybrid sounds pretty good. But I didn't, and I went SSL, and I mixed on it for a couple of years and did some great stuff and had some fun with it. And really enjoyed it, and people are always like, oh, the SSL, the maintenance. It wasn't that much. We had one major problem, and it was major, but my insurance company paid for it. Lightning hit the house and blew the power supplies, and we were in North Carolina, so I had to ship them to Bruce Millette to fix them, and that was a big drama, but it wasn't really that bad. What kind of was weird was the fear, especially when I left LA, because when I had my studio in North Hollywood, I was literally a mile and a half from Bruce's shop. And if anybody knows Bruce Millette, the desk doctor, he works round the clock. Like, literally, we had a card go out when we were first commissioning it. We were midnight. We were just getting ready to actually finally turn the thing on, and it was like a 311 or a 611 card. It was some card in the center section that we couldn't get the console on without it. And Marco Fox was commissioning it, and he realized, he's like, oh, this card is dead. I can't fix it. I don't have the parts. He's like, why don't you call Bruce? I called Bruce. I'm not kidding you. It was like midnight. He answers the phone. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? My name is James Lugo. I'm crazy, and I bought an SSL. I said, we're commissioning this thing, and the 611 center section card is not really working, and wanted to know if you could fix it or how that works. He says, you're not going to believe this, in his British accent. You're not going to believe this. That's not how he really talks. But I actually have a 611 card in my hand right now. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He says, I'm working on a 6K right now. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. He literally, I don't know if it was 611, whatever. It was something like 611 or 315. I don't know. It was a center section card. He literally had it in his hand. He's like, well, come on over. So he basically, he looks at the card. He's like, okay, I'll look at it. He says, just take this one, and I'll fix yours, and you bring that one back, and then you can just pay me for whatever the repair is. I'm like, the ditch only in LA can you get a center section SSL card in the middle of the night. But I got it and we started it up and we had fun. So one thing that we were having issues with, well, one thing that was causing me a little bit of problems was I started to work for a number of pop producers. One guy, Latin pop, and they were doing a lot of pop where it like had breakdowns and it was like a little acoustic thing, and the comments kept coming back that it was a little noisy. So my SSL was noisy because SSLs are noisy. My Pultec on the vocal was noisy because Pultecs are noisy. My Sontec on the master bus was a little noisy and was the biggest pain in the butt piece of equipment I've ever owned. Sounds gorgeous, but man, getting that thing to calibrate left and right. That was a little noisy, and like I had an 1178 on something. Like there were a number of pieces of gear that were noisy. So what would happen would be I would be mixing this pop track. It would cut to the breakdown. I would mix the breakdown in the box, and then I would have to export it and finesse it into the mix. So it was going from like, band rocking or, the beat going and the SSL, and then it'd be like this little, like a nylon acoustic, like, Usher kind of thing. And that would be in the box. And intros were in the box. And sometimes outros were in the box. And then I was gluing stuff and using 2 pops and clicks and print that and knock that, boom, bing, bang, bing, boing. That was starting to get to me. That was starting to get to me. And also I started hearing people's in the box mixes and it seemed like they started to sound better. Now, while I had the SSL, I went to Pro Tools 11, HDX, Burl converters, Apogee Symphony. The last time I had tried to mix kind of hybrid in the box, I was on Pro Tools 7 with the old Apogee 16Xs, an old G5. It was a PowerPC G5. It was before Intel. I had bought it. I bought the whole rig like 2003 from Gadget at Guitar Center, GC Pro, and literally like a month later they switched out of they went out of Tiger into whatever operating system, but I could never upgrade because I wasn't Intel. So I literally bought this rig and it never was updated for 10 years. And I stayed on Pro Tools 7. And so I have the SSL now, but now I'm 11 with the whole deal. Well, when I finally say that's it, I can't take this anymore. I was living in Nashville. I was living in North Carolina. I knew I needed to get out of there. I didn't really want to go back to LA, so I said I'm going to give it a shot in Nashville. I've been through a lot, and you guys know it, man. I mean, I was 300 pounds and very depressed, and I was kind of lost in my career and lost in my own life. So the SSL was at that point it become like a prison sentence. I just wanted it out. I didn't want a studio that entailed 10 people to move the mixing board and renting trucks and, running Special Electric, 240 and this and machine rooms and, air conditioning, I just was done. I didn't want anything to do with anything that had to do with any of that anymore. I just wanted a studio that I could throw in a truck, plug in the wall, and let's make music. So I get rid of the SSL and we go hybrid. And I think I went right to the Burl B32. I'm a big fan of the Burl converters. I have the B2 Bomber, the 2-channel A to D, and I love it. And I love Apogee. I have a slew of symphonies, and I love them too. And I ended up just going with the Burl B32 and keeping a lot of my hardware. And I was able to get mixes sounding like it seemed weird. It almost seemed like the mixes sounded better than the SSL. And I don't know if it was just I had a renewed spirit. I was also very into puremix.net. and the Andrew Sheps video. It's a tutorial company, a tutorial site. The Andrew Sheps video of him mixing Ziggy Marley in the Box. We basically kind of patterned the studio a little bit after his template. And when I got it all finally jiving, I remember we were mixing a song, and we'd mixed it on the SSL, and then we spent about 3 or 4 hours getting the hybrid all plugged in and getting everything to work, and this and that, and hump this down and buy a couple new plugins. And when I got it all done and I was A/Bing, and I was like, wow, I really like the hybrid. It was punchy. The SSL had a cool sound too, but it was not as punchy. It was also noisy. And then that was it. So I drank the Kool-Aid, and now I was hybrid. Now, I've gone down 2 levels since then, getting rid of hardware, because I'm just over having a lot of hardware. I just don't want it anymore. And I got hooked on UAD plugins, and I got an octo cord and a quad card. And there were a number of pieces of equipment that when I A/B'd it with the UAD plugin, the UAD sounded better than the hardware. And I mean, it was a number of pieces. And a bunch of it sounded about the same and didn't matter either way. And then a couple of the pieces of hardware sounded better than UAD, and that's what I kept, which was the PCM 42, quarter note delay on vocals. I love it. I love the H3000 in split harmonizer mode. Though I had 2 of them. I had one for split harmonizer, one set for doubler, and we were able to recreate the doubler sound. And it sounds great with plugins. The split harmonizer, there's some kind of voodoo inside the H3000 that I wasn't able to really replicate. It just didn't have the same wet, big, wide thing. And I mean, I was using imagers and different plugins and combining this and that, and I couldn't get it. So, and that's not to say it can't be got. I couldn't get it. And I kept my Rev F 1176, and I basically kept my subharmonic generators, because they're, I just like them. They just sound great. Punch 10, Furman Punch 10, the PV Cosmos, and Oral Exciter with the big bottom on toms. That signifies inserted on toms. So I kept going down and down and down, and getting rid of more hardware, and I got rid of my Pultec, and I love the Pultec that's in UAD. It sounds great. I also love that Mag EQ. Good God. And Fab Filter. I mean, that Fab Filter EQ that's an ingenious plugin. And then also the Slate. I love that FG401. It's their vertical red plugin, or red compressor that's in their like rack mixer. I love that. Obviously Trigger is like, that's industry standard. So anyway, that's, and actually I was able, when we were doing our last tier down, I wanted to go completely in the box. I'm like, I want to rid all this stuff. And I was able to get the in the box mix to sound really good compared to the hybrid mix. But I had a kind of a realization that I'd done, the last 5 years, I'd done all these records hybrid, and I just was like, let me just keep it somewhat hybrid so that I can do some sort of recalls. Because a lot of times people come back years later and like, oh, we got a new bass player, we want to do this. So I don't know, I just kept it. So that's it. That's where I'm at now. Maybe I'll do a little walkthrough. I'm going to probably have to disconnect this. I'll just show you guys real quick the setup. And this is Ask James, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Link and subscribe. There'll be descriptions down in the descriptions in the description? No, whatever. Oh, links in the description. Wow. And like and subscribe, man. And ask me some questions. And if you got ideas for shows or things you want, we've got a whole bunch of videos set up that we want to do over the next couple of months. Kemper videos and mixing videos and vocal training and, gear and plugins and UAD versus Fab Filter versus Slate, stuff like that. So if you've got ideas, hit me up, jameslugomusic.com. Let's do a little walkthrough. I think this is going to disconnect though. Let me redo this. Let me shut this off. All right, guys. So we're running, I'm back to my old the old setup I had for years, which is Genelec 1031s and NS10s. And we've got a Rev F 1176 that in the mix rig is on the vocal, like parallel. I also parallel it kind of the Brower thing with what is it? The UAD Fairchild is really nice. Punch 10 subharmonic generators on kick and snare. It's more of a fast moving. And B32, B2, and 2 symphonies. So this symphony is 16 by 16. That's my basic for tracking and inserting and everything. This guy is 32 out, which is normaled right into the Burl B32. And then I can break the normals down here to put the hardware in. And then coming out of the B32 is normaled right into the Burl B2. So I print into this, which sounds fantastic. And then I also use this. So this 16 by 16 Apogee is actually inputs are 3 through 16, and then 1 and 2 is the Burl. So I use the Burl for like vocals and guitars and DI bass and stuff like that. This is mostly just for the inserts in mixing and for tracking drums, or if I'm doing lots of guitars or whatever. PCM 42 on vocals and guitars. Eventide H3000 split harmonizer. I've got some subharmonic generators, and that's it. And a turntable, man. Been rocking some records. And the best part of the whole studio, the Chunky Monkey. Bo, tell everybody, tell them, I like hybrid mixing. No, say, I miss the SSL. Say, no, in the box is best. He loves to sit and knock my guitars around. I love you, man. All right, kids. Signing off. Like and subscribe, and let me know if you got any ideas for shows. And I hope this video looks good. JamesLugoMusic.com. Just a couple of things. When you sing, use your diaphragm.
I didn't bring it.